none of the crowd was really reacting all that much to it, just because of the way the WWF had kind of like mapped it out. It was terribly done. So it wasn't a great reaction to probably something that should have got a bigger reaction, considering what happened earlier on the night between the two guys. So yeah, worth pointing that one out. Also, a little bit after this, it's the house shows, as far as they're going off around this time, that Owen Hart and Ken Shamrock are teaming up together, Matt, quite a lot of the times on the house shows, and they're facing Farouk and Rocky Maivia quite a bit on the road, and they're also winning those matches as well. So that's what WWF are doing there. Okay, so WWF Raw, the taping of the 26th of the 1st, this is the night after the Royal Rumble. Ken Shamrock would take on none other than Mark Henry. Wouldn't qualify as a good match, but it was a solid match and a lot better than you'd think, reports Meltzer. Interesting clash of styles there. Going back to, of course, a subject that we bring up quite a lot here, Dan Severn. Dan Severn will definitely be billed in the WWF as an NWA World Heavyweight Champion when he comes in, and he will also be managed by Jim Cornette, probably debuting in mid-February. My feeling is that the only shot Severn has to get over is to be like Bill Goldberg and just destroy everyone with intense power moves. Whether this happens is another thing. Yeah, I think that was kind of wishful thinking, even back then from Meltzer when he puts that one across. Here's a fun fact around this time as we get towards February now. Tyson isn't the only boxing legend involved in pro wrestling. This week of February the 9th, New Japan Pro Wrestling announced on the 10th of the 2nd that none other than Muhammad Ali would be appearing at as a special guest referee on their show on the 4th of the 4th at the Tokyo Dome for none other than Antonio Inoki's retirement match. And of course those two had that famous match between boxer versus wrestler all those years ago in the 70s. Of course, everyone can look back at that, so it's interesting that they were doing that then. Also, reports in February, pretty much the house circuit, they're kind of pitting Shamrock up against Farouk. He's winning those matches on the house shows. Now we jump to WWF Raw, which was taped on the 3rd of February. Rocky Maivia and Farouk beat Ken Shamrock. And how about this, Matt? Chains. Do you remember him?
Yeah.
Well, it was a match that lasted all of 4 minutes. The way this went was when Rocky hit Shamrock hard right in the face with a chair, and Farouk got the pin. Good match, reports Meltzer. After the match, Shamrock acted as a wounded animal and began suplexing everyone in sight, including Chains, before the DOA and Ahmad Johnson calmed him down. Don't know if Shamrock is really the world's most dangerous man, but he sure is the referee's most dangerous man, reports Meltzer. This is becoming a common theme. And also it's worth pointing out that WWF advertised that Dan Severn will be debuting in the next few weeks. So that's now become very, very official. Meltzer reports around the same time in mid-February that it's likely now to be slightly changed plans in having whatever The Rock was going to be doing at the time at WrestleMania has slightly been tweaked, and it's been penciled in that Ken Shamrock would get another opportunity to face Rocky Maivia at WrestleMania. As we then go on to another match, which we now get to No Way Out. This is from Texas pay-per-view. This is a match I really, when I looked at this match, I had no idea what WWF was doing here, whether this was just like a made-up match just for the night. Or it doesn't seem like there was a lot of thinking here. But it was Ken Shamrock and Ahmad Johnson teaming up together, up against Chains and Skull, which... You know, it wasn't great, and of course 8 Ball was also there. It just seemed like sorry, that was sorry, it wasn't like that. It was, let me get this right. Ken Shamrock, Ahmed Johnson, Chains, and which of course was the DOA, and 8 Ball. They were up against, this was like a 4-on-4 match against Farouk, Ron Simmons, of course, that being Rocky Maivia, who else? We've got D'Lo Brown and Mark Henry. So it was kind of, to me, it just seemed like a match that was just put on for the night. It went out at number 5. Meltzer gives it a 2.5 rating. And yeah, apparently there wasn't, even between Rocky Maivia and Shamrock, there wasn't a whole lot going on between the two guys during the match. It didn't look like it was kind of going anywhere. I think what's interesting about the whole dynamic here, Matt, is that I think people were expecting it to be Farouk that faces Rocky Maivia for the IC title, given what was happening in the Nation of Domination at the time. But obviously they didn't pull the trigger until late on with that. But I think that's what people certainly were going for there at that point. I guess around this time. Okay, so moving on. We've got Raw the next night. Ken Shamrock beats none other than who is this, Sniper? I mean, I don't know how much of a great run he had, but yeah, he wins with an ankle lock. Worth pointing out, more house shows are going on over these weekends, and Shamrock is beating Rocky Maivia with a DQ. And then Rocky Maivia has also beaten Shamrock with a DQ the following day on the house show. So the results are sort of up and down, but they're having those matches quite a lot on the weekends for the house shows. Okay, next up, Raw from the 2nd of March. Steve Blackman beats Karma. This was a pretty awful match, reports Meltzer. When Farouk and Rocky Maivia interfered, and Shamrock made the save to help Blackman at the end of the match. The 1999 WrestleMania is tentatively scheduled. Oh, I mean, this one's interesting, Matt. Now, thinking of where, of course, 99 did end up that next year, this is quite a big, bold statement. That apparently it's been reported, Matt, that WrestleMania 99, which of course would be a year later, would be coming from the Sky Dome in Toronto. Of course, that being the last time it had been there was, of course, when the Warrior and Hulk were on. And of course, we didn't actually see that until 2002, but that would have been quite a big difference, wouldn't it, Matt, at that sort of era in 1999, if they'd have gone to a sort of 60, 70,000 capacity. Because the WrestleManias at this point, Matt, they were still they were being kept in these sort of 15,000 to 20,000 sort of arenas. They weren't going for the stadiums at this point. But that's an interesting fault there, Matt, that they were looking at Toronto that early on.
Yeah, the ambition was growing more and more.
Yep, absolutely. Okay, we've also got other matches going on. Maivia scored pins over Shamrock everywhere in Texas. It's reported here on the house show circuit. Since they were the main event, so they did have the face win to the outside interference of a DQ. So they were trying to probably keep the fans happy, it sounds, by having that at the end of the night. March 16th, 1998. It's now, of course, the big kind of penciled in match, or sorry, it has now been made official that it will be Rocky Maivia versus Ken Shamrock. And nothing really in this sort of time is like majorly going on in this feud. I kind of feel like the feud between Rocky Maivia and Shamrock is even somewhat played down in WWF terms. Like they're putting more emphasis and focus on the whole inner workings of the Nation of Domination between Farouk and The Rock than the whole dynamic of Shamrock and Rocky Maivia. And I don't know if they just like used up all their best stuff towards the Royal Rumble, and maybe they just didn't have much here for this. But so we get to WrestleMania, and it's reported here that officially WrestleMania, which for all real purposes sold out the Fleet Center in Boston months ago, almost exclusively through mail order sales, drew 19,028 fans, 15,681 paying fans, by the way, and this works out as almost just over 1 million, which is the largest gate for any event ever in this building, plus an incredible 273,000 in merchandise just that one night. So they obviously done very well that night, for all intensive purposes there. No doubt about that. Now, Rocky Maivia up against Ken Shamrock, WrestleMania 98. This match goes on at number 5, so it's not like early doors, but it's not sort of towards the end either. But Rocky Maivia ends up retaining the IC title, beating Ken Shamrock via DQ. This is this match lasts all of just under 5 minutes. It doesn't look like they really had much to go on here, other than the finish to the match and how they wanted that to go down with the whole Farouk coming out at the end and not helping Rocky Maivia and leaving him with Shamrock applying the ankle lock, and he wasn't going to go in and help Rocky Maivia. Matt, are you familiar with this match? Do you remember this match that much at WrestleMania 98 between Rocky Maivia and Ken Shamrock?
Yeah, it was a shame, like you just said about the ending, though, that they were more concerned about progressing the story than leaving a mark at WrestleMania, which is where we all expect these storylines to come to a head, and we expect a sort of definitive answer. But it looked like they was already looking towards the next possible feud rather than actually wrapping this one up.
Yeah, it seems like there was more going on after the match. I mean, there's a bit on it where Shamrock, goes nuts again, and knocking Maivia off the stretcher, pounding him before leaving, and all the rest of it. Meltzer writes that the only funny part was the cameras off Maivia, who was stretchered, and then took more of a beating, got up and walked to the dressing room after the cameras went off. So that's the sort of thing you see as a live fan that kind of winds you up sometimes. But yeah, that was what went on the night. Meltzer gives this a just over 1 star. I mean, that's where he puts this. But yeah, I mean, I think if you were going to compare, obviously for me, the Royal Rumble match was definitely a better match than this one. And I kind of feel like maybe this should have been Shamrock's, sort of crowning moment as the Intercontinental Champion at this point in his first WrestleMania. But they went with what they went with, and obviously they wanted that set up between Farouk and Rocky Maivia, and it almost feels like a non-WrestleMania kind of angle to do in a way. Okay, here's another fun fact for this WrestleMania then. Fans who purchased $50 tickets for WrestleMania were given free tickets for one future WWF event because of a mix-up where fans were led to believe they would be getting better seats. And I suppose if I went to WrestleMania and I $50 sounds quite a decent deal now, doesn't it, for decent seats? But if I got there thinking I was going to get good seats and then they weren't, I'd probably be a little bit stoked. But I guess a free ticket for a future event would maybe make me feel a little bit better. How would you sit with that, Matt? Would that be good enough for you if they gave you a free ticket?
Well, for a start, like you said, I'd be pretty pleased getting any WrestleMania ticket for $50. But yeah, the option of going to another future event, although not as history-making as a WrestleMania may be, yeah, I'd take what I can get.
Yeah, I think I would as well. Another fun fact here is that the WWF album, the music album, is all at 182 on the Billboard charts, after peaking at 165, which means they are selling 6,000 to 7,000 units per week. I'm sure everyone who was around in that time would remember the CDs that used to come out. I think it got to volume 6 or something like that, and then they had the anthology. album that came out. I think that's when they had to change the name of WWF to WWE. But yes, a little fun fact there.